Hi everyone. Thank you for continuing to listen and like the reflections. Philippians 4 verse 13. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. I really like this Bible verse. I have it printed on a card and I keep it in my phone case. And on the card there is a picture of a woman with a large rucksack on her back. She looks like she has just climbed to the top of a mountain. She has her hands up in the air, giving off the impression that she has just conquered something big, a real challenge. Why I have chosen to read out this verse will become clearer in a few minutes. I've just recently returned from my summer holidays, and if you listened to Marion last week, you will appreciate my tenuous link to her reflection about the Olympics. I went on a 7-day cruise and it began in Athens, and I'm sure some of you will know that the first modern Olympic Games was held in Athens in Greece in 1896. Before I boarded the cruise ship with my husband Johnny, we met up with my cousins from Canada and their friends, and the 8 of us spent 7 days cruising in the East Mediterranean, visiting lots of historical ports and sites along the way. It was fabulous. The boat was beautiful, much more luxurious than we had ever been on before. The food was delicious, and I really had to control myself not to be too greedy. The weather was very hot, most days averaging between 35 and 41 degrees. But it was lovely to have the warmth in our bones and get a little bit of colour, especially since it hasn't always been so great here this summer in Scotland. Our first port of call was Ephesus in Turkey, and we had a tour of the ruins there, and our guide was very knowledgeable, giving us lots of information about how the Ephesians had lived and their culture. These are the same Ephesians that Paul wrote his letters to, and I found that very interesting. It sort of brought the Bible more alive to me, knowing that this was where the early apostles had visited and spent time educating and growing the early Christian church. The disciple John also lived in Ephesus, taking Mary, mother of Christ, there, as per Jesus' request in John 19 verses 26 to 27, where he describes that Mary should be John's mother and John should become her son. Mary goes with John and eventually lives out her final years in and around the area of Ephesus. Our guide actually took us to a house which historians believe was possibly the home where Mary last lived out her life in the mountains overlooking Ephesus. Our next stop on the cruise was Santorini and the famous 3 blue dome churches at Oia, a small town on the island. I didn't go into the churches and there didn't seem to be any strong link to disciples here, but it was more about the beauty of the striking blue domes against the whitewashed buildings. Lovely though to know that churches in that part of the world are seen as a real draw for tourists from all races and all cultures. It seemed to be a thing to get your photo taken there with the 3 domes in the background, but I only managed to get the 2, so I will need to go back. Next stop was Mykonos in Greece. I dipped my feet in the warm waters of the Aegean Sea, the same sea that the Apostle Paul journeyed over while carrying out his mission to spread the gospel. Then we had another day at sea, taking full advantage of all the activities on board of our cruise ship. The entertainment was so good and everything was included. What absolute luxury. Last chance to get off the ship was Naples in the south of Italy. And 6 of us decided to go to Pompeii, and we hired a taxi for the day, visited the historic site again with a guide to give us all the main points of information, then back to Naples to see the sights and try some pizza. Even though I had heard from some people that Naples was quite dirty, I didn't see that side of it at all. I had my rose-tinted glasses on and I loved the busyness of it. Narrow streets where when you looked up, strewn across from window to window was the Neapolitan residents washing, hung out to dry, and the constant peeping of car horns, the beautiful Naples Cathedral, and delicious thin crust tomato pizza made in an authentic pizza oven. Finally, we finished up on the coast near to Rome, and that's when we had to disembark our floating hotel. We had 24 hours in Rome with my cousins before we had to say our teary goodbyes, then flew back to Scotland and arrived home with no rain, no wind, and a pleasant 20 degrees awaiting us. Now, originally when planning this reflection, I thought I might link it to Matthew 6 verses 19 to 21. This forms part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Why would this verse have any relevance? Well, it's about getting caught up in the importance of materialism, having nice things, earthly possessions, which sometimes we think we can't live without. And if we don't have them, then we can't enjoy ourselves and we can't be ourselves. We need these treasures to be the best version of ourselves. They are important too for how we think others see us. When we develop this mindset, we become more focused on what our human instincts think is important for the here and now, and not how God wants us to be in the future with Him in heaven. So what treasures am I referring to here? What do I have that could be destroyed by moths and vermin? Our luggage. It didn't arrive. It missed the transfer from Istanbul to Athens, and it is still missing more than 3 weeks on. All Johnny and I had were the 2 rucksacks on our backs, a book, a magazine, my makeup bag, our phones and passports, but nothing else. No toiletries, no shoes, no shorts, no fancy dresses for dinner on the ship, no smart shirts, trousers and shoes, no swimsuits, no jewellery, no suntan lotion, no moisturiser. To lay up treasures in heaven could be linked to how we dealt with our dilemma. We didn't moan. We didn't focus on how we looked or how others would see us. We didn't let the situation affect our enjoyment of spending time together with our loved ones in some of the most beautiful and interesting places I have ever visited and set my eyes on. And this is where the Bible verse, I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength, fits best to our situation. Those around us couldn't help but try to put themselves in our situation and imagine how they would have reacted. In most cases, they felt they couldn't and wouldn't handle the challenge well. So, I would like to think those who learned of our dilemma might have correlated how we responded to the situation with our faith and belief in Jesus Christ, who gave us just what we needed, just enough to do all we needed to do. If we can do or act in any way which shows those around us that Jesus is working in our lives here on earth, then this must be a treasure that God wants us to store up in heaven. The chance to bring others to the Lord.